Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to our Wizard of Oz trek down the yellow brick road that we've been doing. It's another Culz Reviews deep dive, and today we're going to be checking out Oz the Great and the Powerful, which we got some thoughts on. It looks like I've heard a little bit from these guys. So I'm interested to see where this takes us. But kind of the short and sweet is it's a early days of the Wizard, and definitely shares a lot of similarities with the original film, but we'll get to that. As you can see, we got David the Great and the Powerful, and of course, we got our number one experiencer over there, Nick, or as you know him, Burgles, the life experiencer. How you guys doing?
Doing
I'm
well. How
doing
about yourself?
fine other than my hand disappearing here. I'm waving at you guys.
It's magic.
He's just showing us how to better enjoy the world. See, I can almost do it now because I've watched you how to experience life.
Okay, come on.
Giving him the old Yusuf, right?
Uh, Nick, this was your first time watching it, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So, as a first time experiencer of this film, what are your thoughts?
No, I mean it was a decent movie. I enjoyed like Mila Kunis's performance. Enjoyed Rachel Weisz's performance. But overall, I mean, comparing this to Wicked and the origin story of the wizard in that film, considering comparing the two, like I think Wicked wins out for sure.
It's definitely a hypothesis. Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is a different reality, a multiverse reality, I guess, if you want to say, of the Oz world compared to Wicked, which is in a different branch. And this one's probably in a different branch than the 1939. But at the same time, I know, what was it? Sam Raimi said that the James Franco's like modern or real life, like girlfriend that was getting married was Dorothy's mom.
Correct. She was getting engaged to John Gale, who we are led to believe. And she was also wearing the dress that Dorothy is classically shown in, the gingham style. And very much that is Dorothy's mother.
Yeah, so the wizard almost just like completely didn't give us.
And they were
movie.
in Kansas.
They were in Kansas, yes. And he gets taken away by a tornado. Very similar.
Which does happen in the book, that the wizard did arrive there in a hot air balloon with a tornado. So
yeah, it was a prophecy. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to say, and this wasn't my first time. I actually saw this in theaters when it came out, and I actually like the story behind the wizard here more than I do the story of the wizard from Wicked.
I do too. I like how he had to use his ingenuity, but he's like not super good at it, but he's just good enough and knows enough about materials they don't know that he can make it work.
And honestly, I also kind of feel like this version of the wizard that we see, I think fits a little more in line with the wizard that we see later in The Wizard of Oz, a little more than what happens in Wicked. Like, you've got to kind of retcon a couple of things to make Wicked fit into it. I feel like this fits nicer into leading into the movie, because it explains a lot, like the the enmity that the Wicked Witch has for the wizard. It shows her relationship with her sister. The only thing that would need to be a little like unclear, the relationship between him and Glinda is definitely stronger, where you would think it would show some sign of that in The Wizard of Oz if that was what was going on. But besides that, I feel like it does a lot, because honestly, the wizard in the original, like The Wizard of Oz, I never got a antagonist vibe off of him like they do in Wicked. Like, he was never a bad guy. He's just an opportunist. He took advantage of his situation to benefit himself. And it wasn't necessarily the right thing, but it wasn't really the wrong thing. He wasn't really hurting anybody, because Oz does seem pretty prosperous, what we see in The Wizard of Oz, of what, he's bringing in. The only bad thing going on seems to be the Wicked Witch. And they get that taken care of, and he basically uses Dorothy to get it taken care of. And that seems very in line with what happens in this movie, where it's kind of being sneaky and using ingenuity to overcome whatever issues, as opposed to just straight on fighting with magic or whatever. It's, kind of using that trickster, sly way of getting things done. So honestly, I think I love Wicked. We've already talked about that plenty, but I feel like this is a more fun background for what we know of Oz. And I feel like it fits better with the original movie and the books.
Yeah, and I blanking on the name of the guy who played the wizard in the original one. But while watching this, I was like, I feel like they made at least Franco kind of look at that performance
And there's
and
some
tie some,
characteristics. Yeah, definitely some
yeah,
mannerisms that I could see him becoming
and
at
how he
as an old
walks and
man.
stuff. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. And the same kind of when he turns on his charisma of doing things and stuff. It's very like if you told me that was eventually him, I wouldn't be like, no way. I'd be like, oh, all right.
yeah.
But interestingly enough, with that part, he wasn't even James Franco was not originally supposed to be the wizard. They originally had Robert Downey Jr. and that fell through. And then their next choice was Johnny Depp.
Yeah, Mr. John
And
Depp. I think he had Lone Ranger.
he really wanted to, but he had Lone Ranger. So
Yeah.
and they didn't want to put this movie off. So they went ahead and did James Franco, which I think was a great choice. I think, and this is one of the few movies I think where Franco is like the leading man in a like action adventure kind of thing. Because usually he's like sidekick or bad guy, whatever. So I think he kind of got to do a part that he doesn't usually get to do. And I think he nailed it. I mean, people have their issues with Franco and allegedly things that he may have done, but just acting wise, I think he did a great job in this movie.
Yeah, I think he gets typecasted a lot, especially after Pineapple Express. He very much gets that type of role. But yeah, I think he has acting chops. He just, for whatever reason, didn't choose to use him at the time when he could have. One thing I liked about his performance is something that we brought up in Wicked was when he's going to, he sees, at the time, he just sees a talking monkey and he's like, just walking towards a talking monkey. This is really weird. Because we've talked about that in Wicked. We're like, so the weirdest thing was she was green, but you have talking animals. So I like
Yeah,
how
at
they
least he
actually,
acknowledged. He is like,
yeah,
hold on,
Yep.
guys, maybe this is
So let me backtrack real quick. I liked Wicked more as a movie. I do agree with what you're saying though, that this feels more along like with the actual events of the Wizard of Oz
yeah.
and how the wizard's supposed to be.
And from
Because
what I
he's
understand,
not really a magical person. He's an opportunist.
right. And he's taking advantage of all that. And I will say, I believe from what I read, this was kind of brought about because of how successful the Wicked stage play was. Like it came out, and I guess the creator behind this had really wanted to do a story about the wizard for a long time. And the kind of resurgence of popularity when this hit Broadway gave him the opportunity to get in there and like pitch to do this.
I could definitely see it. I mean, it makes sense, given when did this come out? 2014, I want to say.
20.
I
I
will
want to say
say
it was early 2014. Yeah.
I kind of like this story a little better just in story terms of like Glinda and the Wicked Witch more than what we get in Wicked, where they're like high school or like college friends or whatever. And, this feels more believable of why that they're at odds.
Well, and David, do you think the Wicked Witch, because she has a different name in this one than
I think it's Thedora, correct?
Fedora, and yeah, it's Fedora this one and Elphaba and Wicked. Do you think she's more sympathetic as a character in this one?
I think so. I think this is a more relatable because again, we've talked about it where it's like really you live in a world with magic and talking animals, but you're all picking on the girl for being green. Whereas in this, it really is just a naive girl who's taken advantage of by a man and has her heart broken and then thinks she can trust her family and is betrayed. I think that those are kind of things that are very relatable to a lot of people that they can see how this could happen and, throw in a dash of magic and it makes sense. That and that she wasn't always green.
Yeah. Well, and I like the Sam Raimi aspect of her story where when she cries, it's
The
like cutting
streaks,
into her skin.
yeah,
And that's
just that
very
kind
Sam
of
Raimi-esque, yeah.
yeah, I love that it's alluding to water being a weakness kind of thing. So you understand later why it does what it does.
Mhm.
And something else that I think is genius that Raimi did, I really like that he took from The Wizard of Oz, where he had a lot of people in Oz's normal life show up as characters in Oz.
Yeah.
Even though in this one, Oz is a real place. It's not possibly a dream like in the movie. He said that very much this all really happened.
Unless he dies in the tornado.
Which is true, but at least from Rami's standpoint of what he has said, that Oz is its own physical place.
Yeah. What I like too about this one is it really kind of builds out the world of Oz. We see different like villages, different people, different animals, different like
Like the
flowers.
Chinatown.
Yeah.
We see, the Winkies are there. We see, yeah, I do like that too. It's not static where it's just the road and the Emerald City. It's
Yeah, or
lots
shows.
of different places, and they even talk about even further on. I mean, even just where he shows up, they have to take like a road trip basically to get back to civilization. And you have like the water fairies that he first meets and all that. Like, it definitely feels like a world bursting with magic and creatures and things, like very alive.
Yeah, and the road isn't perfect the whole way. There's like potholes you can see, or like bricks are sticking out of place. Like it just, I don't know. I like the design of it. Like you said, overall as a movie, Wicked's probably better, maybe. But as a story and Oz itself, I would say this one. I do have issues with this movie, but
Absolutely. And I have issues with Wicked.
yeah.
So totally get that. But I do, especially if we're talking again about what fits best with the original movie and book. This one slots in a little better without having as many retcons, I think, is what you need for Wicked.
And there's no philosopher club scene in this one, so that's a plus
That's
for
true.
it.
Nobody gets tiger aids. So
Uh,
that is a big plus.
so I haven't read all the Oz books, David. I don't know if you have, but I love how um her sister in this one, who's the witch that we see at the beginning of Wizard of Oz, has such an evil backstory in both. Like, because even in Wicked, it's just they took like this person you see the feet of for like 5 seconds in
And
both
turn her into a
movies.
total person. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because it's not super far off of Wicked. Now she has more magical powers, obviously, in this one. But in Wicked, she's not that great either at the end of that book.
No, and the reason they don't like her is she's just kind of like a dictator-ish kind of thing. She's closer to being like what's his name? God, who is it that was captured and like Saddam Hussein. Yeah.
Hmm.
She's almost like a Saddam Hussein type figure over the Munchkins that they just don't like her, they topple her. And in this one, she's an actual evil witch because she literally turns her sister into the Wicked Witch and like
Yeah, and
tricks her into it.
she kills Glinda's dad in this one as well.
Who was the original King Oz
Hmm.
or Ozma or whatever yeah.
Yeah, and she becomes a what we would expect I guess, classical evil witch to look like by the end of the story.
I
Where
do
you're like,
like too that was kind of a twist that you didn't think it was going to be her that became the green classic witch.
hmm.
You really thought it was the one that was evil the whole movie.
Yeah, because she's wearing green the whole time too.
And I remember in the like trailers and stuff, it really set up that she was the Wicked Witch.
Yeah, no, I remember when the trailers came out, you only saw like the hand turning green, but you didn't
Yeah.
see who.
So I do like that a lot. And I like that this brought up like Glinda has faced the Wicked Witches previously. Like they are known enemies against each other. Not this. They used to be best friends.
Yeah, obviously we are on this journey to go see what happens in Wicked 2, so we'll see what happens in that movie. But yeah, I like how there's just a better divide, I think, here as to why they don't like each other.
Right. It makes way more sense instead of, well, social pressure says that I have to not like you. Oh,
Yeah.
propaganda. I know you're right, but I can't be seen with you. It's almost like a more Mean Girls type thing here, And spoilers for anybody who doesn't want to know this before Wicked Part 2. Okay, I gave them a chance. I really like the Wicked Witch being a like spurned lover. Like, did the wizard didn't want to be with her for her reasoning more so than, oh, I'm his illegitimate child.
Yeah.
That like I feel like I like it much better as a relationship of I was into him, he rejected me, he broke my heart, whatever kind of thing. I feel like that's more realistic for a villain turn than finding out, because she still doesn't know that that's her dad, and she's already turned against him.
Yeah.
So that's not even the reasoning behind her being all this. It's just a piece of the puzzle. So I just like this better, and it explains why, especially after the apple with the magic or whatever, why she would just be turning it over in her head and making her more and more mad as the years go by, of how much she hates the wizard, of why she'd be doing all this and wanting to take him down.
Yeah, because even though it was her sister that gave her the apple, she was going that path because of him.
Right. And that took away basically any sense that she could have had, or, to get over it. So it just stuck as you destroyed me. You broke my heart. You're a terrible person. Because, I mean, a woman scorned and spurned. Yeah, that's it. No, scorned. It is scorned.
Scorned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. This is a perfect example of that.
Well, and I would say she's very much the typical, like, classical, like, Disney princess where she meets this guy for the first time and she's already, like, planning the
Let's get
marriage.
married.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's kind of like a fun little twist on that, where it's like, but what if it was more realistic,
And also, we got to point out, all three of these ladies are gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like, there's definitely something magic in those waters at Oz, because all great choices.
Except the one that might poison you at the
100.
end of the day.
Hey,
I mean,
win-win
hey,
situation for me.
I can fix her.
Win-win, yeah, win-win situation for me. I get a fine lady, and I get to die. Yeah.
Well, didn't
Okay.
so the portion with
I like how Keegan was just gonna go past that. Like, so anyway.
Yeah, okay, whatever, Nick. So, anyways.
So okay, this sets up like what's her sister's name? I kept wanting to say it was Elf.
It's like it's Thedora and like Adora
Starts with
or
an
something.
it starts with an
let me
E.
see. Let me check the names real quick. I got it right here. Evanora.
Evanora. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's
So-
Thedora and Evanora.
She hints that James Franco like seduced her with the music box. Do you think that was real, or was she just pretending?
I 100% think that she just got the information, or like knew about it and used it to her advantage.
Okay, it's kind of what I was
don't
leading
think-
up, but I was like, I gotta get your guys' opinion as well.
Yeah, I think she was like he's a slimy guy. Like, he's a womanizer for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he was, he wasn't ever shown as like a bad guy. Because like, if he was a bad guy at the very beginning, he would have taken that family's money and done like a fake thing to heal that girl and been like, all right, she'll be walking in a week, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, that scene's very sad.
Yeah, and it's the same. Is she the one that voices the China girl?
Yeah, the one that he fixes her legs.
Yeah, and that's I really like that they have that aspect still, like the original Wizard of Oz,
and
where
how
you-
like, and he like even calls his assistant like, you're a trained monkey, and then he is a monkey, and
he is the monkey. Yeah, and then his like love turns out to be Glinda. Yeah, no, I like that. I think I don't know with Wicked.
I think it's very cool.
Yeah, and I think that's something that Wicked kind of misses. Like, obviously, it's got the music and everything, but it just feels different than the Wizard of Oz. You know what I'm saying?
It does. It's a very different kind of story, and it's very like, it's just this world. I think that we relate to it more when it's something coming from our world into a fantastical world, instead of this is just how it's always been.
Yeah, and they even do like the black and white to the color.
I actually love that, where the ratio aspect and the black and white all change once he gets to Oz, the same way it does in the original movie.
Yeah, well, and when he's going through the tornado and there's all the stuff whipping around, every once in a while it almost looked like stuff was going outside the frame.
Yeah,
and
I was like, it literally does. It comes into the black box part. Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. I was like, I swear it's doing that, and I like that because
And then
like, it's opening the
widens.
world. Yeah. Yeah, no,
I
like
thought that was a really cool touch. I like that as part of the like tying it together with the homage to the original movie.
Well, and I think it also better sets up why the people can't see him. Towards the end of this movie where he dies and he becomes like the smoke god or whatever, versus
Right.
Wicked, where it's like, well, why don't they see him?
Yeah, it's like, what? I totally agree. And I also really like that they did that. They kind of like tricked them by making them think that he had tried to escape with the gold
Yeah.
and like blew up the balloon. And then he's like, haha, I got you. And then they're like attacking the projection.
And he's shooting the fireworks through his mouth projection.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I like, speaking of like projections and stuff, using the smoke over the poppies, which comes back up in this movie, but having like the scarecrows walking through the poppies and stuff, I thought that was fun.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we got to get them. And then they just fall asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool. It's just, I think it's a very well made movie. I wish there would have been more. Like, I wish this would have been the beginning of a series.
Yeah, because everyone at this time very much could have come back, and it made a good amount of money, right? It's not like it didn't make money.
Up until Wicked came out, it was the Oz movie that had made the most money ever.
Okay,
so it was definitely a success.
So the question is, why didn't it get a sequel?
That's a great question.
I imagine it was because of the allegations against Franco.
I don't think those had come out yet. I think this was kind of wrapped up.
Those came out in 2014, and this movie came out in 2013. So it was just like a year later.
Critical response. So it seems like it had kind of a mixed review.
Yeah, that's what I kind of see when I pulled up.
Money-wise, it was first place for the first two. Preliminary reports had the film tracking for an $80 to $100 million debut in North America. It continued at first place its second weekend. Outside of North America, it earned $70 million its opening weekend. Like, it didn't do bad. Okay, it says Oz the Great and Powerful earned $234.9 million in the United States and Canada and $258 in other countries for a worldwide total of $493.3 million. Worldwide, it was the 13th highest grossing film of 2013. They calculate that the net profit of the film was about $36.5 million. So, I mean, that's not bad. I think, Nick, you might be spot on. It might have been with the allegations and stuff that they just didn't want to touch it anymore. Because it's not like it lands on like a cliffhanger. You can go straight from this movie into The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
I mean, you may not get to know about like the China girl and stuff like that, but the important story beats, you definitely get this into Wizard of Oz. You could you could watch this movie and then be like 40 years later, Wizard of Oz. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Outside the Wicked Witch is a different shade of green, but
But I mean, also, you couldn't really. I would love to see a sequel. I don't know how much more you could do though without getting into territory of screwing up the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into like sequels once we get to that Oz movie. But I think it's hard because once you start recasting certain characters, you're like, yeah, but they look younger, they look older. It doesn't look the same.
Yeah.
And then this one, it's like, how much can you fill in between this and Wizard of Oz?
Because I mean, what if you had the Wicked Witch as a bad guy again? How can you defeat her without defeating her? And her sister is still around and alive for Dorothy to kill later. Like what are you gonna do? The only way you could do it, I think, is if it would have been maybe a separate story that was just maybe the wizard on a different adventure in a different section of Oz. Maybe Glinda was there, and that's about the only characters you could really carry over. And just the Wicked Witch, maybe in the background, you hear a little bit about her, but she's not like primary villain. And maybe just have like a story in Winky Country or something that he fixes and comes back. I don't know.
It's up in the air because I think I was reading too that some of the actors had signed on for sequels, but Raimi was like, "Yeah, I really don't want to do another one."
And I can understand that. He's a pretty busy guy.
Yeah, he is. I think I saw that. Yeah, I think I saw Mila Kunis was signed on to do more than one film, and she was super excited about it.
It would, I mean, yeah, because then she would have gotten to be the villain the whole movie, because she was really only the villain for like 30 minutes of this one.
Yeah, because
Hmm.
even when she was like full kind of Wicked Witch, it seemed like she was just like the henchman for a little bit till up to the end.
She was just a
Where
token. Her sister was using her.
yeah,
Yeah, token bad guy.
I could see, honestly, I could see that maybe when they did the contracts, they did sign for more with the hopes of doing it. And then for whatever reason, things probably fell through. Like if it wasn't the Franco stuff, I mean, Rami, this isn't his kind of movie, to be honest. Like this
no,
isn't his usual affair.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very rare in the film that you're like, oh, I can see it's a Raimi movie. Like if you told me Tim Burton did this, I'd probably be like, yeah, I could see that because it's
It'd be a
very much
little
like
weirder,
Alice
but
in
it'd be close.
Wonderland. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
But in that
maybe
case, we definitely would have gotten Johnny Depp.
oh yeah,
Oh
well,
yeah, if it was Burton, we got in Depp and Bonham Carter.
Yeah, she would have been like the Wicked Witch or something.
Hmm.
yeah, the alternate history of the movie.
Honestly, and he doesn't get a lot of credit for this. I loved Zach Braff in this movie,
Yeah,
like as the monkey and as the assistant in the beginning.
I was gonna say he probably doesn't get a lot of credit because of the fact that he's animated for over half the
Yeah,
film. But
but I
no,
think his characters
I
were
do
great.
like Zach. I do like Zach Braff. So I mean, I like seeing him in this film.
yeah, no, I think the secondary characters really add a lot because it just builds the world of Oz better when you have not just people.
Definitely, when it's like the little China girl and stuff like that, and a flying monkey that you actually get to know and has thoughts and talks and isn't just a minion.
Yeah, yeah, no, and then the whole scene in like the China world where he's like picking up like eyes and faces, like
It was sad.
yeah, it was sad and it's dark. It's very much okay. I can see where Raimi was like, okay, let's put that in there. Because when you're looking at first, you're like, oh, it's just China stuff, and then you meet the China girl, you're like, oh, and she's like, my dad used to, or my papa used to tuck me in. Can you? And she's like, I just wish for a family, and you're like, oh,
And I think that it also
These are
did a
real
good
people.
job of showing us how each character kind of helped him become a better person too.
yeah,
Because he definitely had a lot of character growth from where he was at the beginning of the movie to where it leaves him.
Yeah.
from Scrooge to a good guy.
I mean, yeah, it almost not quite as bad, but he definitely.
I was gonna say that's a bit of a stretch. That's
I
a
mean,
I
little
think
bit of a stretch.
I
he
think
even
he
jumped
was
in the
kind
money just
of.
like Scrooge does.
I mean, I think when we even see him in the end of his like in the real world when he's talking to Dorothy's mom and everything, like you can tell he wants to be with her, but he accepts that that's not who he is. That his life has gotten to a point where he can't be with the girl he wants to be with and settle down. So I think he kind of saw going into Oz as like a chance to kind of remake himself a little bit. I think it was like a fresh start for him, and he was starting to go back down that same road that he was. But then he was like, you know what? I can actually do some good for everybody and make this work. And I think that, I mean, because they basically become the China girl's family, you know?
Mhm.
And then acknowledging the monkey, like that he didn't treat his real life assistant well. And that he can, that he can acknowledge that this is his friend, giving him the hat and everything. Like, I think it was a good character arc.
Wait, there was character growth in a Disney movie?
It happens, I know.
Yeah, no, I think he has a good character arc because I think a lot of people, even at the balloon scene, probably in the audience would have thought he was just taken off.
Yeah.
I mean, we see that from some of the people outside of the few that knew his plan. So yeah, no, I think that was a little good thing. How did you like the like full wizard battle at the end?
I thought it was cool. They did a good job. And I think that leads really well into what we see of the wizard in the Wizard of Oz movie, of how the projection grew to that. Definitely see that.
Yeah. Well, how about the witches battle?
It was cool. I mean, I like that they had actual magic that we got to see. because that is one thing that you don't see a lot of in the original movie, just because of the effects of the time and things like. But actually getting to see like fireballs and things like that, like that was pretty neat. I do like that, and it would have been cool to see some more magic.
Yeah, like the part where she's like, "No bubbles," and she's like, "I just do that for show."
Right. But I like that they still had the bubbles and like traveling by bubble and stuff,
Yeah,
keeping true to Glinda's character.
and how it helped them get through the wall. So it explains like why she was using it
Yep, like in that safe dimensional area or whatever.
versus Wicked, where it's just like a prop that she steps on the little button to make it a bubble.
That's one of the things that I hate about Wicked is that they basically allude to saying that Glinda doesn't have any magic power.
Yeah, it's pretty much just what Elphaba.
Or if she does, it's very, very minimal. Yeah,
Mhm.
I personally don't like that. I like the thought of Glinda being just as strong as her, but in different ways, like different types of magic.
Yeah.
I feel like that makes way more sense because, I mean, if she's known as a witch, you would think people would have had to have seen a lot of magic coming from her. And instead, she just utilizes like technology, which
Mhm.
seems like more of a wizard thing.
Well, and so obviously when Franco first meets Fedora, I keep wanting to say Elphaba, Fedora in this film, she looks like Kunis, obviously, because she hasn't turned green or anything like that. And she's like, "I'm a witch," and he's like, "But you don't look like one. And what about your warts and stuff and a broom?" And she's like, "Why would I use a broom?" And then, of course, we see at the end she gets her broom.
I wonder if she did that just to spite him. Like, yeah, look, I got a broom now.
Yeah, and you know what? I am gonna fly on it. How about that?
She's like, I don't even need this. Watch. And then she just flies on her own. Like, what's up?
But also, I don't care if she was a little bit crazy and wanted to move too fast. Who says no to Mila Kunis?
You can fix her, David. You can fix her.
I
Would
mean,
you
she
say
didn't.
no to Mila Kunis?
She didn't really have that anything wrong with her until she got her heart broken, right?
She just wanted to move really fast.
Yeah.
me personally, I would, out of the women in this film, I would say no to Mila Kunis because I would rather go for Rachel Weisz.
Dude, Rachel Weisz, like in The Mummy, oh,
Yeah,
chef's kiss. That's like perfection in a human, right?
Rachel in any film I've seen her in, I think definitely maybe she was good.
Dude, everybody in Definitely Maybe was good. That might be my favorite Ryan Reynolds movie.
It's like one of my favorite movies of all time. So
it's such a good movie. If
so
you've never
good.
seen it, guys, it is such a good movie. Definitely Maybe, probably
Keegan,
one of the best.
Keegan, have you seen it?
It's a romantic comedy. It's amazing.
My answer to that is definitely maybe.
Keegan, I will punch you in the face if you don't answer yes or no.
I gotta say though, I'd have a really hard time turning down Ela Fisher in that movie.
True.
She's gorgeous.
I don't know if I've touched on this previously, but because of that movie, that's the reason why I go out and buy different copies of The Picture of Dorian Gray.
That's cool.
Yeah, because in that movie they have, sorry to derail everything real quick, but in that movie they have Jane Eyre. She collects different copies of Jane Eyre that are inscribed.
Because she's looking for the inscription that her dad left.
Yeah, she's looking for the inscription that her dad left. Obviously, I don't have anything like that in my life. My parents never inscribed a book and gifted it to me because I'm not a huge reader. But at the time, when I saw that movie, I had just read or I was reading The Picture of Dorian Gray, and I was like, I'm gonna make The Picture of Dorian Gray my book. So
that's a cool thing to have. I do like that.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of another one of my personal favorite romantic comedies, Serendipity. I don't know.
Seen that one.
So basically, it kind of sets it up a little bit like that. This girl, she believes everything is a chance, whatever. So she writes her number in a copy of a used book of what Love in the Time of Cholera or something like that, or Cholera. And she's like, in the morning, I'm going to sell this to a used bookseller. And when you find it, if you find it, is when you can call me and like we're meant to be. So for like after that, he has to check every time he goes by a used bookstore or a table selling in New York or whatever. He always has to like check that book to see if her number's in it.
Keegan? Have you seen Definitely Maybe or Serendipity?
Definitely maybe.
I will punch you in the face, sir.
Luckily we are virtual, so
He's been
moving.
I know
he's
where
been too
you
busy.
work.
He's
I
been
know
too
where you work.
busy watching the entire filmography of the actor who plays Yusuf Khan. That's what Keegan does with his spare time.
He's gonna suggest like, hey guys, by the way, next week's deep dive is, and it's like a movie we haven't heard of.
We're getting into Bollywood now, and
Well, okay, here's a movie that I thought of a lot.
I hate that he's not answering, but go ahead.
Definitely maybe, Nick. Going on.
have you seen Serendipity?
No, I haven't seen Sarah. No.
Oh, so David gets a yes or no answer. I get a big beating around the bush.
I said definitely maybe. All right. So anyway, a movie I thought about a lot, and maybe it's because Michelle Williams is in this. But I was thinking the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus a lot in this film.
Isn't
Just with
that the one that
visual-
Isn't that the one that Heath Ledger was working on before he passed?
Yeah,
I
and
still
Yeah,
haven't
where
seen that one.
they had a
and
different
Jude
actor
Law.
take over his
They
spot
had-
in the different worlds.
They had 3 different actors, didn't they? They had Heath Ledger and Johnny Depp and RDJ.
No, Jude
And somebody
Law.
else. I think there was a couple. There was like 3 or 4, I think.
Yeah, who was it? It was Johnny Depp, Jude Law. Was it Colin Farrell? I think Colin Farrell plays one. But
Yeah,
That's
I
right. It
think-
was Colin Farrell is the other one I'm thinking of, I think.
it was okay. I always wonder if that movie would have been better if they could have followed through with the original plans with Heath Ledger. Like I wonder if they had to change things up because it was an intriguing idea. I just don't. It just didn't land for me after I watched the whole thing. It was like, all right, that was interesting, but it wasn't quite what I wanted. So I do wonder what the original script called for.
right, yeah, no, it's one that definitely was retooled after his passing. Another film I thought about, I'm sure you can tell by the title, is Ed Wood, the John Depp one, because just with the black and white and the acting and that scene felt like Ed Wood. I don't know if you guys got that or if you've seen Ed Wood or not.
I have not seen Ed Wood.
Would you say that's a definitely maybe?
No, I would say that's a no.
It's not as fun.
I don't care. You asked me a yes or no question. I gave you a yes or no answer.
Dave, what
Unlike
about you?
you.
Definitely maybe. Definitely maybe.
Certainly possible.
All right.
Just to bring it around, I did see this here. So it said March 7th, 2013, Variety confirmed that Disney had already approved plans for a sequel. It was going to be the same screenwriter coming back, and Mia Kunis said in an interview that they're all signed on for sequels. Sam Raimi did say he has no plans to direct the sequel, saying, I did leave some loose ends for another director if they want to make the picture, and that I was attracted to this story, but I don't think the second one would have the thing I would need to get me interested. Then they said a little later on that the sequel would absolutely not involve Dorothy. And they pointed out that there's 20 years between the events of the first film and Dorothy showing up. So there's a lot that can happen in that time span. Since then, Disney has not begun any kind of development on a sequel. And at this point, I think it's probably too far.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least with this cast, I'm sure because I think, does Disney still own the rights to Wizard of Oz?
No, I think they actually lost the filming rights for not doing anything for so long.
Yeah, because I know that's why they originally did Return to Oz. Was they were about to
They had Return to Oz and they had the rights, and then I think they slipped, so they became public domain, and that's how they got to do like this one. I think was done under public domain.
Okay.
So I think that they haven't had the rights for the books for a long time, and now everybody has them.
Yeah.
But Return to Oz was definitely after they'd bought the books, because back originally, Walt Disney wanted to make the Wizard of Oz. After Snow White, that's what he wanted to do. So they contacted them about getting the rights, and that's when they found out that the book rights had already been sold, so they weren't able to do it. And ironically, the fact that Snow White had been so successful is what caused the other studio to pull the trigger to get the rights and make the animated version.
Right. Well, and I know when MGM was working on theirs, Disney had tried to partner, and they were going to do like animated / not animated.
Right, like
Portions.
Oz stuff was going to be animated, and because that was very similar to Walt Disney's Alice shorts that he had done, where it was one little girl and everything else was animated around her. So it would probably be very similar to that.
But would it have been as iconic, David?
Oh, there's no way. I think
Yeah.
I think everything worked out the way that it should have. And I honestly can't imagine a world where Wizard of Oz was made by Disney and had become like one of their animated features or something. It would not be nearly as compelling as what we ended up getting.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of wizards and Wizard of Oz, David, in the Wizard of Oz movies or museums that you've been to, do they have anything about
From
this
this?
one? Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't have a very large section or anything I've been in, but I know at least the official one in Wamego, the big one in Kansas, they definitely had a whole wall display area that had props and stuff from specifically Oz the Great and Powerful. And because it was a more recent film, like modern day, they were able to have a lot of things like tickets to the premiere and things like that, and memorabilia and popcorn buckets and stuff that had come out when that movie released. So they were able to have a little more of the modern flair with this one, and a couple of costume pieces and things. I think they had like James Franco's hat from it and stuff like that were on display there, and then a couple of the like toys that had been made of the dolls of the witches and stuff. So it's definitely acknowledged in the world of Oz. I don't know, I don't think it made as big a mark as they were hoping it would, but it is definitely still a recognized piece, unlike things like the 10-man sci-fi series or something.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely ones that maybe we'll talk about as we get closer to Wicked. But like you've said before, we'll probably condense some of those to just one episode for all of them.
I think we could definitely do that with like some of the spinoffs and things.
Yeah, because some of them are so loosely tied to like the Oz property, it'd be hard.
Do you know what one of my favorite Oz inspired series is?
What?
Ted Lasso. When they originally wrote it, Ted Lasso, the story about him coming to coach the football team in England, it is roughly based off The Wizard of Oz, where Ted is Dorothy coming from Kansas to the UK, which is a whole new world, and then they have different characters that all stand in as the wizard, as the Scarecrow, the 10-man, etc. Like one needs to learn more compassion and stuff, so that's the 10-man because he needs a heart. One of them's making really stupid like public statements and things all the time and doesn't think things through, so he needs a brain. Like it's pretty cool. They took the archetypes and the overall kind of vibes of Wizard of Oz and turned it into a very modern story, which I think is pretty neat.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that. I have not seen Ted Lasso, but
it's fantastic. It's a really good series.
I don't have Apple TV, so that's why I haven't seen it.
But if you look around,
I've heard
I want to say there's a lot of places where you can get like a free 1 to 3 months of Apple TV. If you ever get some time on your hands, I definitely suggest doing it and watching them. It's a very good show.
I've heard good things.
You can get them physical like media as well now too.
You can. I do believe the first 3 seasons are all on Blu-ray, and I know they recently announced they're going to do a 4th season, so that'll be later on. But you can also get DVDs, Blu-rays of them right now. Like we don't need to talk about it with this because it's very loosely Wizard of Oz, but I just thought like it's definitely a story that has transcended and become one of our cultural cornerstones. I think those characters are just so relatable and everybody knows them that it's easy for it to bleed into other media using that as inspiration for their characters and their story in a way that everybody's familiar enough with. You're like, yeah, okay, he plays this part, this part, this part, I get it, and kind of hook them in a little quicker.
Yeah, I was watching an interview and I forget the 2 movies, but there's a director who said there's only 2 type of movies, and one of them was Wizard of Oz, and I forget what other movie, but he said all movies you see are kind of based off those templates. So I mean,
I do know there's some people that say there's only like 20 different story templates in the world, or that
mhm.
every story that's told now has already been told in some format.
Yeah, I've heard similar things to that as well. Or like, I'm sorry, this isn't quite like that, but it is similar. There's a lot of tropes shared with like hero stories,
Oh,
like
absolutely. Like the hero's journey and everything. There's
the
by
hero's journey.
far,
Yep,
yeah.
yep. Parents or mentor dies and leaves some parting
And then
words of
and they
wisdom or
have like an
something.
elderly
Yep.
figure that helps guide them, and then that person dies, like Luke
Mhm.
Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, or Gandalf dying, stuff like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, the hero's journey is a
Uncle
very popular model.
Uncle Ben,
Right.
stuff
And
like that. Yeah.
and it's popular because it works.
Oh yeah, it works, but it's also made fun of quite often now,
Oh
especially
yeah.
when it comes to games like the entire Assassin's Creed series. That's every main character's journey is that their parents die and then they have a mentor that also dies, and
But
it's
one thing
just
that's great about having stories like that, like a strong, you know, that you think this is what's going to happen, it's really good that sometimes you can subvert expectations and kind of turn it on its head to give your audience something they didn't expect.
Yeah, like take Miss Marvel. No Uncle Benning in that one. Yusuf is
No,
still alive.
that's right. And honestly, I think after Doomsday, it everything's going to be destroyed. Yusuf's going to be the only one left.
I, I, I hate this bit. I hate this bit so much. This is such a bad bit. Oh my god.
It's become such a bad bit that Nolan was like, I can't tell if you're joking or not. Um,
Yeah, Nolan,
David,
Nolan, who has supposed to have been with us for the all entirety of Daredevil, just got back from doing some trips. Now he's gonna be available for a little while, but yeah, since he wasn't in those discussions, he has no idea that this is a bit.
David, was there any other small references or homages to the Wizard of Oz that we haven't talked about yet?
I don't think there's anything too major. I think we hit most of them. I do think they did a great job of peppering in the different things, be it the very big obvious things like the black and white to color, great things there, the characters coming over, and then to some of the smaller details with things like the poppies, that put people to sleep, and things we've seen before be like, oh, but they didn't do anything to the point that you have to have seen The Wizard of Oz to understand this movie.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you could technically watch this first and then the next one and get it. So I think they did a great job. I think it was a great, because I mean it's going to be very difficult and overwhelming, I would think, to tackle a story like The Wizard of Oz. Anything you're trying to add, anything like it's such legendary lore of again a story that's become a cultural touchstone for us. Like it is a cornerstone of a lot of pop culture. Anytime you're doing anything, adding, taking away from that, messing with it is going to be risky, and you're going to be judged probably harsher than you would on an original story. Like if they would have tweaked this a bit to just be a fantasy story, I think it maybe would have been more successful. I think that some of the expectations going into this were higher because it's always going to be linked with what is a cinema juggernaut, like it is just part of who we are as a society right now. So yeah, I think it definitely got a lot more critics on it because of that. But to bring it full circle, it just shows that Wicked being as successful and great as it is, shows that it's really done a lot to earn that. It has resonated with enough people that it can overcome that stigma of having to be compared with one of the gold standards of Hollywood.
Nick, anything you'd like to touch upon that we haven't so far?
Well, just going off of what David just said, like I can't remember what movie it is, but there's a comedy movie I used to love as a kid where they paid homage to the original Wizard of Oz film with the whole black and white in the beginning and then transitioning into color. And that's always gonna, like, for me, that's always gonna be tied directly to Wizard of Oz because it was the first time in cinema history that kind of happened, and it's still iconic to this day. But no, I have nothing else other than that. I am David's the great and powerful. I'm just the experiencer here.
Well, we're trying to figure out how to experience Oz better, Nick. That's why we.
Well, that's why you have to talk to the great and powerful. I'm not the Oz experiencer. I'm the life experiencer. Okay.
But Oz is life. As long as we're doing these deep
This
dives.
isn't. This is no. Don't do Shrek is love. Shrek is life with Oz here, real quick. Okay.
All right. So
It's all Ozer now.
Nick, as our experiencer, give us your final thoughts, your rating, recommendation, all that.
I'd say 7 out of 10 for the film. Wasn't
Dude.
wasn't wasn't bad, but definitely I like
Yeah, I would say probably 8 out of 10. Very strong movie. Very, you can tell, I think, also that it was trying to set up for more. So again, it surprises me that there wasn't a sequel, because it definitely has that feel that there was, more to go with these characters if necessary. But I think they did a great job of bringing the world of Oz to life. They made it nice and colorful. They had a compelling story. I liked a lot of the characters. They cast some gorgeous ladies, which is always a plus. Overall, I really liked this. I loved the Easter egg and homages to the original movie. They were able to pay tribute to a great, but still make their own way and have something new, have a new story, and kind of have it there as an option for what you can believe happened before Dorothy dropped in. And I think they did it really well. So definitely a solid 8, close to a 9.
Yeah, for me, I mean, at points it definitely feels very tongue in cheek and very kind of slapsticky. I think on purpose, very much. Like I said, I just saw a lot of similarities to that Ed Wood movie, but at the same time, I really like the backdrops seem like matte paintings and stuff like that. Like they made it try to look like the same aesthetic, even though it's CGI. So I really appreciate that. And like you said at the beginning, I think it is a better kind of origin story for what we see in Wizard of Oz. And did it need a sequel? Probably not, because we already, I guess, have it. This is more like a prequel. So I'd say 7.5 out of 10.
Solid.
Yeah, not too bad of a rating today. But we'll be back traveling down the Yellow Brick Road. Most likely it'll be Return to Oz, which is one of the other kind of big ones. Obviously came out. Traumatized, I guess, a whole generation of kids, but we'll find out. Will it traumatize us? You'll just have to wait.
Is that the animated one from like the 80s?
No, it's a live action one that Disney made in the 80s.
Oh.
They got some cool characters though. They're scary looking, but this is where you get like TikTok and the pumpkin guy and all that.
Yeah, you didn't know you'd get a phone app in the 80s, but here we are.
Yeah, basically, Dorothy goes back and she gets a whole new cast of characters with her.
Yeah, because I think this one's based off of Oz of Ozma or Oz Ozma or something like that. One of those books. It's like 7 or 8. It's not actually. It's titled Return to Oz, but I don't think it's based off that one.
Let me see. Return to Oz movie. All right, let's see. Which book is Return to Oz based on? It says the 1985 film Return to Oz is primarily based on the second and third books in the Oz series, The Marvelous Land of Oz and Ozma of Oz.
Okay.
It also incorporates elements from TikTok of Oz and the play The TikTok Man of Oz. So it's basically the direct sequel right after The Wizard of Oz. It's what happens next.
Yeah, in movie canon, they even shield out the money to get the ruby red slippers, right?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's just called Return to Oz because it came out so much later than The Wizard of Oz because it came out in 1985.
Yeah.
So
yeah. A whole new batch of actors and stuff. But we will be back talking that. David, anything else you think is on the horizon that they should know about?
I do believe if you are interested in a totally different brand of adventure and fantasy, we will be talking very soon about the new Marvel masterpiece, hopeful masterpiece, Thunderbolts, coming to theaters in just a little bit. So we will be doing a pop culture deep dive on that. And all your favorite, I guess, anti-heroes would kind of be the best way to describe these guys. Throwing together a slapstick team that's going to try to step in and pick up the slack where the Avengers have not been around for. So be here for that.
Nick, how's our petition to get Oz back at the MGM casino going?
I've had very varied success. I've at least gotten an email back saying stop emailing us, but nothing else after that.
You would think after the success of Wicked, they would bring it back. It actually has a really cool little story they set up there back in the 90s. So it's a bummer
Well,
it's
what's
not there.
interesting, I don't know if they can at this point. I don't know if casino rights for things like that would fall under theme park rights. And if that's the case, I do believe Universal has those now. I've even heard a rumor that there may be an Ozland based kind of on Wicked at the new Universal Park that has just been announced that they're going to start building in the UK.
Yeah, at some point, I feel like they got to introduce Wicked and Wizard of Oz into their parks because
So
obviously it's making so much money.
the one I'm really excited about, like I could see Oz possibly being a new expansion to like Epic Universe, like another portal being like Emerald City or something like that. The one in the UK though, one of the sections that they may possibly get is going to be Middle Earth
That'd
and
be
have
cool.
a Lord of the Rings part of their park, which would be very cool.
That would be very cool.
Well, so I think they're losing the Simpsons land this year, right?
I don't know if it's this year, but I know it's on its way out. And the heavy rumor that I've heard is that whole area is going to turn into Pokemon.
Yeah, I heard Pokemon, and then I heard there's a rumor that Zelda is going
That's
into
not going
one
to be
of the
that section. Legend of Zelda is slated for
Epic Universe.
potentially no, over at Islands of Adventure where they have the Lost Continent with Poseidon's Fury and the Sinbad show and all that. The talks have been that potentially will become Legend of Zelda, but they may just add it on to Epic Universe to be over with Super Nintendo. I mean, it would make sense.
Yeah.
But if you get a different Nintendo property in each park, it makes them have to go to each one. So I
Oh,
can
yeah.
see them different.
Well,
ones.
not only that, but it helps thin your crowds out to give reason to go to the other parks too.
Mhm.
Because if all your newest best stuff is in one park, it's going to get flooded. But if
Yeah.
you've got cool stuff in all of them, it makes it a little easier to like, hey, let's go see Pokemon today instead of, battling all the other ones.
Yeah. So there you guys go. Our little look into Oz the Great and the Powerful. And like I said, we'll be back talking more Wizard of Oz stuff. So until next time, guys, for more deep dives, click the link to your left. For more just here on the channel, click that link on your right. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow these guys. All links will be in the description below.